The Toyota Land Cruiser may be coming back to the US after all, but it's probably not what you think. We recently received these exclusive spy images from a guy named Time Runner. Now, Time Runner caught this vehicle, heavily camouflaged vehicle, testing in California, and we have reason to believe that this could be, very well could be, the next generation of Toyota Land Cruiser, or maybe its brother. So here's the full story. A while back, Toyota announced the death of the Land Cruiser here in the United States. This came as a blow to many because the Land Cruiser is an icon here in the US. The first ones came over in the middle of the last century, and then they established themselves as off-road monsters throughout the 60s and 70s, as reliability beasts throughout the 80s and 90s, and as luxury staples throughout the 2000s and into the 2010s, while retaining that original off-road pedigree. Well, unfortunately, according to Toyota, it's not coming back to the US for its next generation. We actually rank Toyotas, specifically Land Cruisers, in terms of their series number. And for the most part here in the US, the best known models are the 40 series, the 60 series, the 80, the 100, and the 200 series, the 200 series being the present day model. Now that was introduced in 2007 for the 2008 model year. It's been around for well over a decade now, and it's gotten a couple updates, but 2021 will be its final year. The next generation, the 300 series, is not slated to return to the United States. So what is this vehicle doing testing in California? And why do we think this is a Land Cruiser or something like it in the first place? Well, a couple of things point us in that direction. First of all, the vehicle that is accompanying it, a Toyota. When these companies go out and test new products, they typically bring along a similar vehicle, or at least a vehicle from within the same brand to run support. Then we see the plates. Texas plates, Texas manufacture plates. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that pretty much the only major OEM based in Texas is Toyota. They're out of Plano. If it's like a BMW, it'll typically have New Jersey plates. Sometimes we'll see vehicles with California manufacturer plates. Oftentimes Michigan. The big three typically have Michigan manufacturer plates. But the Texas plates in specific point me to the fact that this is probably an upcoming Toyota model. Heavily camouflaged in this custom wrap. Or is it more of a sheet? So, next Toyota. It looks big. It looks really big. It looks tall, but surprisingly narrow. Now that could mean this is a version of the upcoming 300 series Land Cruiser. What do I mean by upcoming? Well, abroad, Toyota has already launched the 300 series Land Cruiser, and this thing is a beast. I'm really upset it's not coming to the US because listen to some of the specs. It's powered by either a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 gasoline engine or a V6 diesel. So gone is the 5.7 V8 that we have come to love and expect. In its place with the 3.5 twin turbo that makes 409 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque. I personally believe that this engine is going to be in the upcoming Tundra as well. And then the V6 diesel makes 305 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque, fed through an automatic transmission, a 10-speed. But the cool part about the foreign market 300 series is the off-road gear. Locking diffs not only in the rear, but in the front as well. Here in the US, if you bought a 200 series, you couldn't actually get one with a rear locker or a front locker. You could get it with a center, and it had a really sophisticated four-wheel drive and traction control program, which did a great job of simulating off-road locking differentials and off-road gear, but not a true locker. Now abroad, the 200 series has had many variations and options. If you went to Kuwait, it would be very difficult than one you'd find in North Carolina, which would probably be very different than one you'd find, for example, in Sydney, Australia. It's also worth noting that here in the US, we've historically only gotten the very expensive models of the Land Cruiser variation. So for example, the current 200 series, well into the $80,000 range, a Heritage Edition fully loaded, granted almost no options, you're going to be, $90,000 range. And I think that is one of the reasons that within the last couple of decades, it hasn't sold all that well, and I think that has led to the demise of that nameplate here in the United States. So for example, Land Cruiser typically only sells 3,500 to 4,000 units, which for a major OEM like Toyota just isn't a lot of volume. So I think that is one of the reasons that it is no longer going to be returning. So you're thinking, Tommy, why are you talking about this and then showing this weird looking prototype, and what does this have to do with American Land Cruisers? Well, this is the cool news. I think that this could be the upcoming Lexus LX. In fact, your first look at the Lexus LX, which, as a quick refresher, is underneath a Land Cruiser. That's right. Now, it has some fancier clothing on. The front end, at least in the current generation, is much more intricate, much more angular. It's got a bigger grille. It's got more delicate trim on the lower front fascia. It's got bigger wheels. It's got these nice, elegant side steps in the back. Once again, very, very different than a Land Cruiser. But underneath, it's got the same engine. It's got the same platform. It's got a similar suspension setup, although the Lexus is height adjustable. It's got the same legendary reliability as its Toyota brother. And I've got a feeling, although not official, that this brand new model that we're looking at right now could be the upcoming version of the US spec Lexus LX, rumored to be called the LX 600. 600, that's right. Supposed to be a 2022 model year is what I have been hearing through the grapevine. So, what does this mean? Well, it means that we may be getting a Land Cruiser after all, just not in the name. I hope that it still has some of the off-road capability of the 300 series that we see abroad. Will it have a front locker? That's a bold stretch, but it would be cool if it did. Will it have a rear locker? Once again, probably a bold stretch for a Lexus, but I'm hoping that it will. Will it have a high towing capacity? I sure hope so. Will it be expensive? Probably. Now, this 300 series, for example, from what I read in Japan, starts at 46 grand, 46,679, but here in the US, we've typically only gotten the very expensive models. So I'm figuring if this is an LX 600, 8590 starting. Now, interestingly enough, the LX does sell well compared to its Toyota brother. In the US, it sells really well because it's got the Lexus badge on the front. And Americans, when you're spending that much, Americans typically like to have a prestigious brand associated with that price tag. And Toyota, $85K for Toyota. For a lot of folks, they'd rather have a Lexus and a BMW and then tell their friends they drive a Lexus or a BMW. So will it have the same bulletproof reliability? I don't know, but I sure as heck hope so. The current Lexus and Land Cruiser are built in their own bespoke plant in Japan, and they have a rigorous set of requirements that it must go through before it's allowed to pass its development process. Toyota has a super strict reliability requirement anyways, and then you add on top of that the fact that it's got the Land Cruiser name associated with. These two are some of the most reliable cars ever made. They last forever. Interior wise, the foreign market 300 series looks to have a 12.3 inch optional touchscreen display. I have a feeling we'll probably get that in the US. Lots and lots of leather, hopefully a fold flat third row, which would be a pretty big deal. Hopefully a lot of towing capability, and hopefully just a lot of built-in off-road pedigree. I really hope that this thing actually happens. Now, the other possibility is that we could be looking at a new Sequoia. Sequoia has also been around in the US for well over a decade, and it's very much in need of an update. It's rumored to be based on the new Tundra, and it's rumored to be built in the same plant as the new Tundra as well. I don't think that this is what we're looking at. The proportions don't feel Sequoia to me. They feel much more boxy and much more upright and vertical, so I feel like this could be a variant of the 300 series, but we'll have to wait and see and find out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Exciting stuff happening. We just have to wait and see what it ends up being.